There's been an absolute ton of images online going around lately of wild spaces being completely trashed, so I had to do something about it and make a video giving you my top 5 tips on Leave No Trace. Let's go. Hello, Russ here, bringing you the best tips and inspiration for hiking around the world. If all of that sounds right up your street, do consider hitting that subscribe button below for more content just like this every single week. I feel like us as hikers, wild campers and long distance backpackers, it's our duty and our responsibility to make sure that we're educating those out there, so I thought this video would be a really good thing to do. So for those of you who aren't familiar, and especially for those of you who are going out into these wild spaces and trashing them, this video is definitely going to be useful because I'm going to go over all of the Leave No Trace principles and give you my top 5 tips that I've found help you abide by them. Okay, so the Leave No Trace principles are: number 1, plan ahead and prepare. This principle basically helps ensure the safety of others, the land and the wildlife. It prepares you to leave no trace and it minimises the resource damage. So basically when you're out hiking and there's things like vegetation on the floor, there's different types of ground, rocks, trees, anything that's natural. It's basically helping to preserve that. It contributes to accomplishing trip goals safely and enjoyably, and it increases self-confidence and opportunities for learning more about nature. So yeah, planning ahead and preparing is really important. Principle number 2 is travel and camp on durable surfaces. So basically durability refers to the ability of surfaces or vegetation to withstand wear and remain in a stable condition. The frequency of use and large group sizes increases the likelihood that a large area will be trampled or that a small area will be trampled multiple times. So yeah, basically if you're in some open access land and you're planning on walking out wherever you want and roaming that land, if you're allowed to camp there, basically make sure that you're walking on durable surfaces, you're not wearing them down, and if you're camping there, make sure that they are strong enough to withhold your campsite. Principle number 3, and that is to dispose of waste properly. So proper disposal of human waste is important to avoid pollution of water sources. It avoids all the negative implications of someone else finding it. It minimises the possibility of spreading disease, and it maximises the rate of decomposition. Principle number 4, and that is leave what you find. I really love the saying about this one that's basically take only pictures and leave only footsteps. It's so true. Whenever you're out hiking, if you find like a really pretty stone or something really beautiful like flowers or anything, don't pick them up. You're just going to cause damage to the natural environment in those places, and if you're doing it, other people are going to start doing it. It's not just you, it then becomes hundreds of people doing the exact same thing, and then we'll have absolutely no beautiful things to look at in the wilderness. Take absolutely nothing from the natural world and leave it as it is. Principle number 5, and that is minimize campfire impacts. So campfires to me pretty much are the worst thing that you could possibly do, especially when trying to abide by Leave No Trace principles. Campfires should never be lit in this country while you're wild camping. Up in Scotland you might find some designated fire pits which are safe to use as long as you know how to use them properly, or if you're in a paid for campsite, a lot of them do actually allow you to have campfires on their grounds. But if you're wild camping here in England, Wales and in Ireland, it's never the case. Just don't light any campfires. They're smelly, messy, they can cause wildfires, and they're really difficult to clean up in the morning. Principle number 6, and that is to respect the wildlife. Always observe wildlife from a safe distance and definitely never feed them. The wildlife isn't your toy, they're not your pet. If you come across any form of wildlife while you're wild camping, just look at it, watch it and enjoy it. You don't need to interact with it, you don't need to play with it. I don't know, it's just one of those things. Just enjoy it and don't do anything. Just use your common sense for wildlife. If you're out in the US, it's totally different. If you see a bear, a lot of people should be educated on being bear aware and all those kinds of things. But you know, I think a lot of people are just really undereducated here about what to do when they encounter wildlife. Last but not least, principle number 7, and that is to be considerate of other visitors. So one of the most important components of outdoor ethics is to maintain courtesy towards other visitors. It helps everyone enjoy their outdoor experience, and many people come to the outdoors to listen to nature. Excessive noise, uncontrolled pets and damaged surroundings take away from the natural appeal of the outdoors. So, you know, keep the noise down. Don't bring your boom boxes, don't leave your car engines running and things like that. If you're going to have a party, just do it at home. Don't use the wild spaces to have a massive party and a booze up. Do those in your back garden where it's okay to do so. Now there's a lot to consider there with those 7 points. There is a lot of underlying bullet points that would take me absolutely forever to go through in this video, but they basically just outline the basics. Most of it is just pure common sense, so it's a real shame that we've got all these people going out there trashing our wild areas and basically putting a bit of a bad name on all of the people that actually do know how to respect the land. Okay, so now it's time for my 5 points, and basically what I'm going to do is focus mainly on point 2, which is to dispose of waste properly. Now this isn't just talking about human waste, this is talking about your trash management and all of those things. So let's get into my top 5 tips. Okay, so tip number 1, and that is to use a heavy duty rubble sack to collect and gather your rubbish in. The benefits of using a heavy duty rubble sack is that they last for ages. I use one for hundreds of miles and it's still going. I've got a whole roll of them, but I've only used a few. You can reuse them, and you can just, whenever you get to a bin, if you've got it full of trash, just empty it into the trash and then you can just wash them and reuse them. They're super cheap. I bought a whole roll of them on Amazon. They're really lightweight and they're much more durable than a standard plastic bag. Tip number 2, and that is to buy food in bulk and then portion it into separate Ziploc bags. Food like trail mix, noodles, rice, anything like that can all be bought in bulk in large containers, and then the best thing to do is to buy Ziploc bags and then portion it out for each day. The Ziploc bags are fantastic because they're super durable, they keep all of your food inside, they're really easy to use, they're really cheap, but the main best thing about them is that they're reusable. You can wash them, you don't need to throw them away each time, so that is a really good tip for that. Tip number 3, and that is don't light any fires. I pretty much mentioned this earlier. They're messy, smelly, they cause smoke, light pollution. They might really help you in a survival situation, but unless you're in a survival situation, if you've got a stove, there really is no need for a campfire. They're really difficult to clean up, and a lot of the ground in the national parks here in the United Kingdom has a layer of peat underneath it, and that is flammable, so if you catch fire to that, you're just going to cause a wildfire. I was up in Scotland in Glencoe. I was staying there for a few nights, and I went out to the pub one night and then I looked up and I could see the top of this hill was completely on fire. And then before I knew it, like fire engines were coming up, people were coming out of their houses, and there was this whole expanse of like hillside that was just completely ablaze. And you just know that it was someone wild camping up there that's had a fire and just caused all of these problems and risked people's lives, probably killed wildlife, killed all the vegetation off. Definitely not good unless it's a designated campfire pit and you know how to use it. Just don't light any fires. That is a really important piece of advice. Tip number 4, and that is to hike and camp in small groups of no more than 2 or 3. Less people means less rubbish, less footfall means a lot less impact on the wild spaces, and also you don't need such a big campsite. A much smaller area for your campsite is needed, so again, a lot less impact on the wilderness. And tip number 5, which is probably my most important tip of all in this video, and that is to make it your duty as a hiker, backpacker and wild camper to collect the rubbish as you go, whether it be yours or somebody else's. This pretty much contradicts leave no trace principle number 4, which is to leave what you find. But I'll tell you what, if I was out in Snowdonia loads last year, especially during the summer, and I was going hiking in the hills, and I found so much rubbish on every single one of my hikes, especially on the Snowdon Massif area, going up the main kind of tourist paths that are there. And it was despicable, the amount of rubbish that I'd find. Big 2-litre massive plastic fizzy cola bottles. I was finding so many wet wipes where people have gone for a pee and just wiped and just chucked it. The kind of shit that you find out in Snowdonia, and people have just chucked it. Put it in, pack it out. Look at how much rubbish I picked up today. Absolutely disgraceful. Just don't do that. Like, what's the point? Even like, don't even chuck banana skins or fruit or anything like that. They take absolutely weeks to rot, and it leaves an absolute mess, and it attracts lots of wildlife to come and eat these things and be in contact with people. So, you know, while you're out in the hills, make sure you bring your heavy duty rubble sack and make it your duty to pick up all of the trash that you find if you can. If it's really disgusting and you really don't want to pick it up, I don't blame you. But just make it your duty to at least pick up as much of the rubbish that you can in these wild spaces and keep the wilderness clean for everybody else. Would you rather hike in a nice pristine wilderness that looks like this, Or would you rather hike in a wilderness that's just completely covered in rubbish and been completely trashed and disrespected? I know which one I would rather go for. The question is, which one would you rather go for? Okay, I hope all of that helped you understand what the Leave No Trace principles were and how you can manage all of the trash that's being dumped out there. What hacks and tips do you have about abiding by the Leave No Trace principles? Let us know what they are below in the comments section. The Trail Hunter community would love to hear from you. Thanks so much for watching this video. Thumbs if you liked it, subs if you loved it, and I'll see you in the next one.